Welcome to the Nairn County Podcast, which is brought to you in association with our digital partner Ziyen Energy, the leading blockchain software and digitalisation experts leading the field in emerging technologies related to oil and gas tokenisation. For more, go to ziyen.com. In this final part of Iain Brooks' special on the Nairn County Podcast, Graham McLeod hears from Iain about his frustration at being stuck on the subspence in his final season with us as he commuted back and forth from Aberdeen. The day of wind-up at Darren Shallicker's expense almost led to Shally missing the team bus to a game. Also, Iain moving on from us for the final time in 2007. And of his times playing with Strathspey Thistle and Stoneywood in the juniors before making a Highland League return when he was approaching 40 years of age. If you've enjoyed episode 5 of our Nairn County Podcast, then why not give us a like or share or tell a friend about us. But for just now, it's over to Graham and Iain for one final time as Iain kicks off by talking about the day we were a penalty kick away from a cup final double in 2006.
Later on that season, we reached another semi-final in the Highland League Cup. We beat Buckies on penalties, he scored in the shootout. And then it's almost deja vu again from the golden goal game where a Brooks goal has led to a 1-1 draw against an Aberdeenshire side in extra time. This time it's Fraserburgh and it's down there. This time there's no golden goal though, and it goes to penalty kicks and we lose on penalties. That must have been a really gutting day, having won the North of Scotland Cup already. You must have fancied your chances of a cup double that season.
Yeah, we really did. And again, we came up against Fraserburgh. I mean, they're a horrible team to play against. But we were fully confident of beating them. And, you know, I think I hit the post that day. You know, I think it was with an overhead kick, actually, if I remember. I remember that game. But yeah, it was really devastating, especially, as you say, we kind of experienced that high and we wanted to do well again. But penalties, you know, it's one of those things, unfortunately. I can't remember who took it. I think Cinders missed and I think Bobo missed, Big Mark McDonald missed the last one, and it was hard to take. It was really hard to take.
The 2006-07 season, that's the final year that you're with the club. At that point, you're commuting back and forth from Aberdeen to play. What was it, the sort of circumstances around that, and how did you find that arrangement?
I didn't actually join the fire service until the July of 2007, but I'd been accepted for it back in September, I think. So I knew I was going. My girlfriend, or my wife just now, she was living in Aberdeen at the time in uni, doing her nursing. So I kind of was living with her basically in Aberdeen. Obviously wasn't making training for a lot of the year, missed a lot of the games. So when I was coming back for games, I was finding myself on the bench quite a bit. Which, I mean, I probably would have anyway, because by that time I think Shally was playing with Darren Shallicker there. I think Kellen might have still been there. Willie Barham was there. Stevie Sanderson was there. You know, Davey was there. So the options for Les at that time were you know, he had plenty of options in that 4 days in the park. So when I was kind of making it here and there, of course I wasn't playing. I wasn't training. I wasn't expecting to play, but it was still a bitter pill to swallow. You know, for being at the club for all these years, to be finding yourself sitting on the bench regularly was a bit disheartening. Plus the fact that after every game I had to drive back to Aberdeen. You know, it wasn't the best circumstances.
You mentioned a name there, someone that we brought in, Darren Shallicker, that year. I know you hit it off with him really well because you both liked a good wind-up. Tell us about having Shally about the place, and did you ever manage to catch him out?
Catch him out? Oh, I think I know what you're getting at here. Yeah. No, Shally was a larger-than-life character, so he kind of fit in well. We kind of clicked straight away. He liked a bit of banter, as you say, liked the wind-up, liked a cider, which were all ticks in my book, you know. So I think what you're getting at, again, we were playing away at Cove one day, and I think I was back in Granton because I was on the bus that morning. And I can't remember, the game was in doubt of being played. I think it might have been the weather or something like that. So I remember training on Thursday night, Shally was saying, "Oh, I really hope the game's off on Saturday. You know, I really hope it is because I'm going to go out in the batter on Friday night." And I'm like, "Oh, great." And at that time, Les had split up. So Les had taken half the guys' phone numbers and I'd taken half the guys' phone numbers. And Les says, "Look, if the game's on or off, you text these guys and tell them and I'll text this half." And I had Shally's number. I was like, right, okay, so I text Shally on Friday and I thought, right, I'll wind him up. You know, I'll give him a text and tell him the game's off. He'll have a couple of ciders and then I'll text him again later on to tell him, "Oh, it was a wind up, the game's on." So I text him, it must have been about 5 o'clock on a Friday night or something. I text Shally, "Oh mate, just got word, the game's off tomorrow, enjoy your cider." Fully expecting to text him back in a couple of hours, but me being me, I forgot all about texting him back, right? Completely slipped my mind. Gets on the bus the next morning at Nairn and goes through to, I think it was one of the RAF bases he was based at. So we had to go in and pick him up on the way to Aberdeen. So I've still not clocked that I've not texted him back yet. So we're waiting outside the gates, waiting, no Shally. So Mike Fridge, he's like, I'll phone him. So Mike starts phoning him. And just as Mike's on the phone to him, I'm starting to think, I'm starting to remember. So Shally's picked up and all I hear Mike Fridge shouting down the phone was, Brooks, he said, what? He told you what? I'm, oh no, I forgot to text him back. So lo and behold, 2 minutes later, out comes Shally, unshaven, hair everywhere, friggin' tie half on, hangover to shit. And he's getting in the bus, he's absolutely raging, he's giving me daggers, and so he gets in the bus, I think he sleeps all the way to Cove, he gets up and I think he goes and bangs in one from like 25 yards as if nothing, as fresh as a daisy. So I keep saying sorry to him, but I've not spoken to him in a couple of years. So if you're listening, Shally, I still apologise for that. I'm really sorry.
Did you get away with it because he scored?
Oh, I got away with it. I got a ribbon on the way home. I don't think Les was too happy.
We reached the final of the North of Scotland Cup later that year again in our defence of the trophy. It's against Ross County this time around. You were on the bench for it. I suppose that was a bit of a disappointment for you. It's
always a disappointment being on the bench. Any player that tells you they're happy sitting on the bench is talking rubbish. Whether it's a friendly or whether it's a World Cup final, it's not a nice place to be. It wasn't as if I was coming back from injury or something. I'd obviously not played a few of the games before that, but to still be on the bench in a big game like that was pretty hard to take. It's one of those things, you get your chance, you've got to take it. But unfortunately, I was getting on. If I was not in that game in particular, but if I was getting on and playing well, then I would miss the training still the next week. Still find myself on the bench, So it was hard to argue with. And I think even by Christmas time, I think the plans were put in place for me to be moving on somewhere else in the summer.
Yeah, later on that season, we reached the semi-final of the Highland League Cup again. There was penalty shootouts involved again. We beat Forest at home. Again, you scored. And on all my research, I can find you being involved in 4 or 5 penalty shootouts, and you've taken a penalty in each one, and you've scored in every single one. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, did you ever fancy getting on the pens as a penalty taker at all during your time?
Yeah, all the penalties I've taken were in penalty shootouts, but with Scott Kelk in the team, there's no way anybody else was going to be able to take penalties.
Gary as well.
Gary Farker, yeah. I was more a kind of hit and hope penalty taker, whereas these guys could put the ball exactly where they wanted it. So there was no chance of me ever getting a sniff at the penalties, to be honest with you. Would I have taken them, or would I have liked to have been taking them? Of course you would have. Of course you want to do that, but there was no chance I was getting a shot at it. I was just, obviously, in penalty shootouts, I was always wanting to volunteer, wouldn't back away. So I think listening to Gary Ewan's podcast last week with a couple of guys with saying him, he just didn't want to take a penalty. So you stood up and you done your bit. And if it went in, it went in. If it didn't, then nobody can really hold it against you in a penalty shootout.
You actually did pre-season with us at the end of your last season, and you played in a few of the friendlies. I noticed from looking back, there was a chance that you could have stayed on and played under the same arrangement that you had.
Yeah, I think I still had a year in my contract left at that point. That whole summer, I was away down in Gallen, obviously doing my training for the fire service. So I was away Monday to Friday. I was coming back at the weekends, and in friendly games during the summer, of course you're going to get minutes. They try to rotate as many players as they can. Could I have stayed on that year? And yeah, I probably could have, but again, I would have probably been in the bench a lot of the time. At that time, Strathspey, they were still in the junior leagues, which a lot of teams were through in Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire. And it would have really made it a lot easier for me to kind of commute back and forth from there. So over a couple of months before the end of the previous season and during that pre-season, I think I spoke to Les a couple of times about possibly going on loan. I think he was kind of keen to keep me there just for cover, if nothing else. Because obviously Shally was in the RAF, he was away for weeks at a time. But I wasn't content for being a kind of bit part player, especially at a club where I'd been at since all those years. So yeah, I gave Strathspey another shot.
Your last appearance for Nairn was actually that summer. It was actually at Strathspey in a friendly game. Did you know coming off the pitch that day that would be the last time you'd be pulling on the yellow jersey? And was that quite a hard day?
I think I spoke to Donny McLeod before the match. I think Les had spoken to him as well. So it was I think it was well known by that point that where my future lay. So yeah, a couple of guys on the pitch for Strathspey were actually talking in the park, speaking to me, saying like, "Well, are we seeing you next week? You come to play for us next week?" And that's how quickly things were moving. But no, I think I scored in that game as well. Was it me? Or was it Brian McLeod? Can't remember. Anyway, but it was a fitting last game to play for Nairn. against the team I was going to, my hometown team.
Yeah, you mentioned going on loan to Strathspey from there, and they were still in the juniors at the time. How was that being back there with your former club?
It was different. I mean, a lot of the players had moved on at that point. There was a lot of youngsters kicking about the club at the time. A lot of really good players still there. Like say, your Jamie Rogers and that. He was one of these guys that's from the local area, from Aviemore, player that really should have played at a higher level. Tremendous player, but he was quite happy at Strathspey. So we had a lot of good players there. I mean, you spoke to Callum about Callum Donaldson in his podcast a couple of weeks ago about him going back to Strathspey. It was guys kind of Callum's age. They were kind of a bit younger than me. And unfortunately, the way things worked out, I still couldn't make a lot of the training. I made a lot of the games, but because of my shifts, I was on 2 days, 2 nights, and then 4 days off. I was missing 4 games in a row. Then I'd be home for 4 games in a row, away for 4 games in a row. So it really wasn't it couldn't have carried on the whole year. I don't actually know how long I was there for, but I wouldn't say it was that long. I don't think I made the season. I don't think I finished the season there. That was not the fault of Strathspey. They did everything they could to help me. I think I was training one night a week with one of the teams through in Aberdeen, just to keep my kind of hand in. But missing all these games and then trying to take it your way back into a team is difficult, especially with guys you don't really know. But yeah, so I found it a lot difficult than I thought it would be.
You move on from Nairn, as I say, you've already played your last game, you're on loan at Strathspey. The contract then runs out at the end of that year and you find yourself with Stoneywood, I believe, in the juniors.
That's right.
Down in Aberdeen.
That's right. Well, I didn't want to play football at all. That was me finished. I was going to concentrate. I think I was getting married later that year. Concentrate on my work. I was just a probation in the fire service at that time, so that was kind of my focus. I didn't want to play football, and that was it. And I remember sitting in the station one day, and this guy comes in. He's looking for the guy Brooks. It was one of my bosses. "You the boy Brooks?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "Right, are you signed with a team at the moment?" I said, "No." He says, "Right, Polo Park, 2:00 Saturday. Bring your boots." And he was the manager. Graham Laird was the manager of Stoneywood at the time. So purely out of fear, I took my boots along to Polo Park on a Saturday, and I think I ended up being there for about 2 or 3 seasons. I think it was brilliant. It was really good. Really enjoyed my time in the juniors, and I was really surprised that it was a really good standard. You had your teams like Cooter and Sunnybank, Banks of D, were all with top players in it, and some of the money kicking about that league at that time was probably better than be on in the Highland League. So it wasn't to be sniffed at. The players through there at the time were like, especially Cooter, it was Davy Calder, he was there. So that's the kind of calibre of player that they were playing in that league. So it was an easy transition. I really enjoyed it. I was making training and I was making most of the games as well. So I really enjoyed it. It was good.
You made a bit of a Highland League comeback though later on for Strathspey for a short while. And I think, if I remember rightly, you actually managed to get yourself sent off, did you?
Well, aye. Well, I'll tell you the story. This must have been about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago now. We moved out to the deepest, darkest Aberdeenshire, middle of Rothy Norman. I was out walking my dog one day, and my phone went, and it was Brian Grant, who's latterly been at Nairn Saints with Slasher. And him and Rob Simpson were manager of Strathspey at the time. So I was yapping away at him. I'd known him for a long time. I played with him when I was a kid. And he says, "Oh, do you fancy coming along and helping me out at Strathspey?" And I was like, "Oh, Brian, I'm working in Aberdeen. I can't commit to coming and helping training every week." He's like, "No, I don't want you to take your training. I want you to play." I was like, "Are you having a laugh? Have you seen me lately? I'm about 15 stone. I can hardly run the length of myself." No, we're going to play at the back. I was like, "Well, now I know." I was like, "What, is this April the 1st or something?" So I went along and helped him out, and we're away to Lossy the first game, and right enough, he played me centre-half. And the first time I'd ever played centre-half in my whole life, not even as a kid had I played back there. But to my surprise, I was doing really well. First half, when most of the ball was played in the air, so I was at home in the air. So that was fine. Half time, great. And then second half, Sean Scott came on, and stupidly, I would have done it myself, but I stuck my leg out, he went past me and fell over my leg. It wasn't a penalty, but I can see how the ref was duped. And lo and behold, I was given my marching orders. And no longer had I went in to the dressing room and checked my phone. And here's Mike Ray, Gareth Smith, all on the phone ripping the hole out of me already. I hadn't even walked 50 yards. And it must have been about 15 seconds it took me to walk from the pitch to the dressing room. And they're on the phone already. And that was kind of, I think I'd managed another couple of games after that, and that was that as well.
So was that the end of your stint at centre-half and you were back up front, or did you?
That was my one and only, I think. Yeah, my one and only stint after that. No, I was only there, as I say, to help them out for a few games, so it wasn't a long-term thing at all.
So bring us up to speed then with your football involvement since then. You've been involved with playing on the coaching side at Spey Valley over the last...
Yeah. I've been there, this will be, 3 years now, so I'm still on the coaching staff there. Still been playing regularly up until this, obviously COVID put the damper on things. And I've been really enjoying it. I've been playing in the juniors for Spey Valley throughout the season, and then in the summer league, playing in the local welfare league here. Well, I think it was did I play against you guys last year when you took it?
Right, yeah, we had an under-20s game against one of the teams down there that you were playing.
That's right. I think maybe my last year now, but I'll probably still be involved, hopefully. But you never know. I might be pulling the boots back on next year. Depends how many boys we can get. But no, still there, still on it.
So I still enjoying playing, and then maybe is the future going to be coaching?
I don't know. I think the only thing that'll put a damper on it now, my wee boy, he's through at Cali, so that might my football might take a back seat to his. So I'll probably be taxi driver as my dad was to me at that age. So who knows? Who knows? If I'm required, I'll maybe sling the boots on again, but I'm hoping not.
So how would you reflect then, Iain, on your career overall, your 2 stints at Nairn and your spells with Strathspey and Stoneywood too?
If I was to reflect on my career as a whole, it would come down to Nairn. You know, I was there as a kid from under 13s right through to late 20s when I left, and those really were the kind of the best days of my football career were at Station Park. Maybe not some of the games and some of the kind of darker times that we've spoke about, but just to turn up every Saturday, Tuesday and a Thursday at training and going into battle, if you like, with guys who were your best pals. There was no better feeling in the world, you know, and it was just amazing. And I look back on those days with great fondness, you know. Thanks
very much for taking the time out then to join us, Iain. It's been really enjoyable to listen to your talk about your career.
No problem, mate. Thank you very much. All the best.
The Nairn County Podcast is brought to you in association with our digital partners, Ziyen Energy. Click on Ziyen.com to find out more.